Okay, so today we shall see the different methods of electric heating. So basically, heat is produced due to circulation of current through resistance. Current may circulate directly to the application of potential difference, or it may be due to induced eddy currents. Similarly, in magnetic materials, hysteresis losses are used to create heat. In dielectric heating, molecular friction is employed for heating the substance. An arc established between the electrode and the material to be heated can be made the source of heat. Bombarding the surface of material by high energy particles can also be used to heat the body. So these are the various methods of electrical heating. So the heating depends on the principle on which the heat is produced. The various methods of heating are given below. So electrical heating is classified into power frequency heating and high frequency heating. In high frequency heating, we are having inductive heating, dielectric heating and infrared heating. And again in inductive heating, we are having direct core inductive type furnace and coreless type induction heating. In power frequency heating, we are having two types. One is resistance heating, another one is arc heating. Okay, in resistance heating, we are having direct resistance heating and indirect resistance heating. Whereas even in arc heating, we are having direct arc heating and indirect arc heating. So first classification, what we are going to see is the resistance heating. So resistance heating is based on I square R effect, where I is the current and R is the resistance. So when the current is passed through a resistance element, I square R losses takes place, which produces heat. Okay. This method of heating is used in heat treatment of metals such as annealing, hardening, tempering, drying and baking of potteries, drying and enameled wires, domestic and industrial cooking. When resistive wire elements are used, temperatures up to 1000 degrees Celsius can be obtained. There are two methods of resistance heating: direct resistance heating and indirect resistance heating. So, in direct resistance heating, the material or charge which is to be heated and the current is passed through the charge. So we are having charge which is placed inside the furnace and there are two electrodes and current is passed through those electrodes via the charge. Okay. The charge may be in the form of powder, small pieces of solid, or maybe liquid, suspended liquid particles. Okay. The two electrodes are inserted in the charge and connected either to AC or DC supply. So two electrodes will be required in the case of DC, or in the case of single phase AC there will be again two electrodes which is phase and neutral, whereas in the case of three phase supply there will be three electrodes, okay, R, Y and P. When the charge is in the form of small pieces, a powder of high resistivity material is sprinkled over the surface of the charge to avoid direct short circuit. So in order to avoid short circuit, we are spraying a high resistance powder on the top of the charge. Heat is produced when the current is passed through it. This method of heating has high efficiency because the heat produced is flowing in the charge itself. In the case of indirect resistance heating, electric current is passed through a resistance element which is placed in the electric oven. Heat produced is proportional to I square R losses of the heating element. The heat so produced is delivered to the charge either by radiation or by convection or by combination of the two. Sometimes resistance is placed in the cylinder which is surrounded by the charge which is placed in the small jacket which is shown in the figure. So this is the resistive wire. Current is passed through the resistive wire and the heat is radiated to the charge by the radiation effect, and in the charge the heat is transferred by conduction method. If it is liquid, then the heat transfer takes place by convection method. So this arrangement provides uniform temperature. Moreover, automatic temperature control can also be provided. So we can have automatic control. That is the advantage with this method. So next we shall see the first type of resistance furnace. This is called as resistance oven. So these are suitably insulated closed chamber with provision for ventilation. They are used for wide variety of purposes, including heat treatments of metals like annealing, hardening, etc., stowing of enameled wire, drying of potteries, vulcanizing and hardening of synthetic materials for commercial and domestic heating. Temperatures up to 1000 degrees Celsius can be obtained by using heating elements which are made out of from nickel, chromium and iron. Ovens using heating elements made of graphite can produce temperatures up to 3000 degrees Celsius. So graphite rods we can use. So if we use graphite rods, then the temperature inside this oven can reach up to 3000 degree Celsius. So this is the arrangement of resistance oven. So here we are placing the heating elements. Okay, a powerful blower is used to blow the air inside the heating chamber so that the heat distribution will be uniform. So heating elements may consist of circular wire or rectangular ribbons. So there are two types of heating elements. It may be either cylindrical wires or maybe the form of ribbons. The ovens, which are usually made of metal frameworks, has an inner lining of fire bricks. So in order to provide thermal insulation, we need to have fire bricks. The heating element may be located on the top or bottom sides of the oven. The nature of insulating material determined by the maximum temperature required in the oven. The enclosure for charge, which is heated by radiation or convection or both, is called heating chamber. So the charge is placed in the heating chamber, the door of this furnace is closed, then the current is passed through the heating elements and the charge will get heated up. So this is the principle of resistance furnace or resistance ovens. So how to control the temperature in the resistance furnace? The temperature of the resistance furnace can be changed by controlling I square R or V square by R losses. So the following are the different methods which are used for the above purpose. First type of heat control is the intermittent switching. In this case, the furnace voltage is switched on and off intermittently. When the voltage supply is switched off, heat production within the surface is stalled and hence the temperature is reduced. When the supply is restored, heat production starts and the furnace temperature begins to increase. Hence, by this simple method, the furnace temperature can be limited between the two limits. So at one instance we are closing the switch, so heat will be generated in the heating element, and at another instance we are opening the switch, so the heat will be stalled in the furnace, so there is no heat produced. So this is the method of intermittent switching. So periodic switching we are using to control the heat of the furnace. The second method of heat control is by changing the number of heating elements. So in this case, the number of heating elements is changed without cutting off the supply to the entire furnace. So there is no interruption of supply to the furnace, but we are increasing the number of elements or we are decreasing the number of elements if we want more or less heat respectively. Smaller the number of heating elements, lesser is the heat produced. So in this case, In the case of three-phase circuit, equal number of heating elements is switched off from each phase in order to maintain a balanced load condition. So in the case of three-phase supply, maintaining the balance of the load is important. So in order to maintain the balance of load, so resistance or elements per phase should be the same. So simultaneous switching of phase elements is required in the case of three-phase supply. So the third method is the variation in the circuit configuration. In the case of three-phase secondary load, the heating elements gives less heat when connected in star than when connected in delta, because in the two cases the voltage across the elements is different. In single phase circuit, series and parallel grouping of the heating elements causes change in power dissipation, resulting in the change in furnace temperature. So initially here we can see, so the components when they are connected in star, okay, when the elements are connected in star, the voltage per phase is V by root 3. Whereas when the elements are connected in delta, then the phase voltage will be V. So when there is less voltage, there is less heat produced, and when there is more voltage, in the case of delta, there is more heat produced by the elements. Okay, so this is one more method of heat variation. Okay, or we can have series parallel combination. Okay, so this is a series parallel combination. Remember, the heat dissipated will be maximum when the supply to all the elements will be V. That is when the elements are connected in parallel. Okay, so in order to obtain high heat, we need to connect the elements in parallel. Okay, in order to reduce the heat, we can connect the elements in series, or in order to have a proper temperature control, we can have series parallel combination. The fourth method of temperature control is the change of applied voltage. So obviously, lesser the magnitude of voltage applied to the load, lesser is the power dissipated, hence the temperature produced will be less. In this case, the transformer having high voltage primary, the tapping control is kept in the primary winding because the magnitude of the primary current is less. So since the magnitude of primary current is less, this is a step down transformer, the magnitude of primary current will be less. So it is easy to control the voltage across the primary. So that is why provisions or tappings are made to control the voltage at primary side. Okay, consider the multi-tap step-down transformer as shown in the figure. Let 4 tappings of the primary winding have 100%, 80%, 60% and 50%. So these are the tappings. When 100% primary turns are used, secondary voltage is given by V2 is equal to N2 by N1 into V1, where V1 is the input voltage. When 50% tapping is used, the number of primary turns involved is N1 by 2. Hence, available secondary voltage V2 is equal to 2 times N2 by N1 into V1. By selecting suitable primary tapping, secondary voltage can be increased or decreased, causing the change of temperature in the furnace. So, by varying the primary voltage, we are controlling the temperature in the furnace. The fifth method is bucking or boosting the secondary voltage. So in this method, the transformer secondary is wound in two sections having unequal number of turns. If the two sections are connected in series aiding, the secondary voltage is boosted. That is, it is increased from E2 plus E3. So this is the combination. So here if we see, the secondary voltage is E2 plus E3. Okay, but here when they are connected in anti-parallel, then it will be E2 minus E3, the secondary. When the two sections are connected in series opposing, the secondary voltage is reduced. There is bucking effect. Consequently, the furnace becomes E2 minus E3, hence the furnace temperature is reduced. The sixth type of control is the auto transformer control. So the figure shows the use of tapped auto transformer, which is used for decreasing the furnace voltage, and hence the temperature of small electric furnaces can be controlled. So at the secondary side we are having a auto transformer. Okay, so input voltage is constant. At the secondary the voltage is varied by auto transformer. The required voltage can be selected with the help of voltage sensor. The seventh type of temperature control is the series reactor voltage control. Okay, in this case, a heavy duty core wounded coil is placed in series with a furnace as and when desired. Due to the drop of voltage across the impedance of the coil, the voltage available across the furnace is reduced. With the help of DP-DT switch, high to low or two mode temperature control can be obtained. So since the addition of series coil reduces the power factor, a power factor correction capacitor is simultaneously introduced in the circuit, keeping the power factor nearly unity. So when the DP-DT is in position 1, then both the reactor as well as capacitor is connected to the connection of the furnace. Okay, so reactor, when it is used, it draws lagging power factor. In order to correct the power factor, we are having capacitor. Okay, when the temperature needs to be increased, then the position of DP-DT switch is changed to position 2. Okay, when the DP-DT switch is in position 2, then the entire supply is given to the furnace. So the temperature of the furnace increases. So design of heating elements. Normally wires of circular cross section or rectangular conducting ribbons are used as heating elements. Under steady state conditions, heating elements dissipates as much as heat from its surface as it receives the power from electric supply. In the case of cylindrical heating element, if P is the power input and H is the heat dissipated by radiation, then P is equal to H under steady state conditions. As per Stefan's law of radiation, heat radiated by a hot body is given by H is equal to 5.72 EK into T1 by 100 whole power 4 minus T2 by 100 whole power 4. Unit is watt per meter square. So where T1 is the temperature of the hot body in degree Kelvin and T2 is that of the cold body in degree Kelvin. So now the power dissipated P is equal to V square by R, and R is equal to rho L by A, that is rho L by pi d square divided by 4, where A is equal to pi d square by 4, so that it will be equal to 4 rho L divided by pi d square. So P is equal to V square divided by 4 rho L divided by pi d square. So this will be pi d square into V square divided by 4 rho L, or we can say L by d square is equal to pi d square divided by 4 rho L. Okay. So the total surface area of the wire of heating element is equal to pi d into L. If H is the heat dissipated by radiations per second per unit surface of the wire, then heat radiated per second will be equal to pi d into L into H. So equating 1 and 2, we have P is equal to pi d into L into H, or pi d square V square divided by 4 rho L is equal to pi d into L into H, or d square by L square is equal to 4 rho H divided by V square. So this is in the case of cylindrical heating element. Okay, so we can find the value of L and D from equation 1 and 3. Okay, the next type of heating element is the ribbon type element. So if W is the width of the ribbon and T is the thickness, then P is equal to V square by R. So V square divided by rho L by A. So V square divided by rho L divided by W into T, where W is the width and T is the thickness. So this will be equal to WT V square divided by 4 rho L, or 1 by WT is equal to V square divided by 4 rho L. Okay, the heat lost from the ribbon surface is given by 2WL into H. As T is small, the heat dissipated from two sides of the strip is ignored. Thickness of the strip can be very small. So therefore, this will be equal to WT into V square divided by 4 rho L. So this will be 2WLH, or T by L square is equal to 2 rho H divided by V square. So value of W and L for a given ribbon of known thickness T can be found out from the equation 4 and 5.